There is one tiny house floor plan that banks will actually give you a real mortgage for, that insurance companies price like a normal home, and that goes up in value every single year instead of losing value like a car on wheels. It is not a loft. It is not a trailer. It is a single-level, ground floor, tiny house built on a permanent foundation. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly what one costs to build in 2026, which builders are doing it right now, and the one financing detail almost nobody tells you about that changes this entire equation. Stick around, because that detail alone could save you tens of thousands of dollars. Before we get into it, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I put out a new tiny house breakdown every week, real numbers, real builders, no sponsored fluff, and if you're seriously considering going tiny, this channel is going to save you from some very expensive mistakes. So let us define this properly, because the tiny house world throws a lot of terms around. A single-level, ground floor plan on a permanent foundation means three things. 1. Everything you need, bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, living space is on one floor. No ladder to a sleeping loft, no climbing over a spouse at 2 in the morning, no crouching under a 5-foot ceiling. 2. There's no loft at all, or if there's a small one, it is for storage, not for sleeping. 3. The house sits on a real foundation, a slab, a crawl space, or a pier and beam system, the same way a traditional house does. It is not sitting on a trailer frame with wheels underneath. That last point sounds small. It is not small. It is the single biggest decision you will make in this entire process, and we're going to come back to exactly why in a few minutes. Single-level living is having a real moment in the tiny house world right now, and it is not just about aesthetics. Aging in place is a massive driver. If you plan to live in this house for decades, a loft with a ladder is a problem waiting to happen when you're 75. No stairs also means no stairs to fall down, which matters more than people admit until they're the one carrying laundry up a ladder. Accessibility matters too. A one-level plan can be built wheelchair accessible in a way a loft design simply cannot. And honestly, a lot of people just want to stand up straight everywhere in their house. That is a completely valid reason on its own. The trade-off is square footage. Without a loft, you need more ground floor footprint to get the same livable space, which usually means a slightly larger, slightly more expensive footprint than a loft design. We're going to price that out in real numbers in a minute. Here's where most tiny house content online gets lazy. Everyone talks about the house. Almost nobody talks honestly about what is under it. And the foundation is where a huge chunk of your budget and your long-term outcome actually gets decided. You have 3 realistic options for a permanent, ground floor tiny house in 2026. Concrete slab. This is the most common choice for permanent tiny homes. Expect to pay somewhere between $4 and $12 per square foot, and for a typical 400 square foot footprint, that lands you around $2,500 to $5,000. Those soil conditions can push that higher. A slab works best on level, compacted ground with a shallow frost line. It is simple, it is durable, and it is what most permitting departments are comfortable approving. Pier and beam. This lifts your house on individual concrete piers, helical piles, or treated wood posts. It costs a bit more up front in most cases, but it gives you easier access to plumbing and electrical underneath the floor. It works on sloped lots where a slab would need expensive grading, and in cold climates the piers just need to extend below the frost line to handle heaving. This is currently the most common foundation choice, specifically for permanent tiny houses that need to meet full residential building codes. Crawl space. More expensive than a slab, generally in the range of $8 to $20 per square foot, but give you a protected space for utilities and adds a moisture barrier between your floor and the ground, which matters a lot in humid climates. Whichever route you choose, budget $400 to $2,300 just for permits, plus a land survey around $500 to $750 if you have not already had one done. Skipping this step because you are excited to start building is how people end up with a house that does not pass inspection. Let's talk about total cost, because this is what you actually came here for. A permanent on-foundation tiny house in 2026 averages around $51,000 to $53,000. But realistic full projects range anywhere from $30,000 for a very basic DIY build-up to $150,000 or more for a fully custom, professionally built home with high-end finishes. If you're hiring a builder for a complete turnkey project rather than doing any of the work yourself, budget $70,000 to $150,000. Break that down by category, and it looks roughly like this. Foundation, $3,000 to $15,000, depending on type and site conditions. Kitchen and bathroom fixtures combined, $3,000 to $15,000. Windows and doors, $1,500 to $6,500. Electrical, plumbing, and HVAC systems installed by licensed professionals, $4,000 to $12,000. Permits, $500 to $3,000. Sometimes more if your county requires a specific accessory dwelling unit permit rather than a standard build permit. And do not forget land prep, clearing trees, running sewage lines. Grading a sloped lot can add another $3,000 to $20,000 before you have poured a single yard of concrete. Per square foot, expect somewhere between $150 and $400, with prefab builds landing on the lower end and fully custom builds on the higher end. Let us name names, because I know that is what you actually want. Boxabl has become one of the most talked about names in this space. Their flagship casita is 361 square feet and has historically been advertised around $60,000 for the module itself, meant to be set on a permanent foundation. They have also rolled out a much smaller baby box, a 120 square foot unit on wheels priced closer to $20,000 to $30,000. But that one is built to RV standards and is not a foundation home. So keep it separate in your head for what we're talking about today. Here is the honest part on the casita, and I want to be straight with you on this one. That module price does not include your foundation, delivery, permits, or utility hookups, and Boxabl's own SEC filings show real-world installed pricing for a permitted place casita has landed closer to $150,000 once everything is accounted for, with actual deliveries running well behind customer deposits due to permitting and installer capacity. If you're looking at Boxabl, get a full installed quote before you get attached to the sticker price you see online. Great Lakes Tiny Homes offers move-in ready, single-level models engineered to go directly onto a permanent foundation, and they come with professional construction and warranties baked in, which matters a lot if something goes wrong 2 years down the road. If you love the classic tumbleweed look, know that Tumbleweed Tiny House Company only builds tiny house RVs on wheels now. They do not build homes on foundations. What they do offer is a line of engineered, foundation-ready blueprints of their iconic designs, built for a slab or pier and beam foundation that a local licensed contractor can build for you on site. If you want a custom architect design plan rather than a factory-built shell, companies like Dean and Allison Ramsey House Plans sell single-level tiny house and accessory dwelling unit blueprints that a local licensed contractor can build and get stamped for your specific jurisdiction. This route costs more in design fees, but gives you full control over the layout. And if you are specifically trying to build in your own backyard as a legal secondary unit, regional builders like Little Home Builder in Colorado and Any Tiny Homes specialize exclusively in permanent foundation accessory dwelling units and tiny homes, handling the zoning and permitting research for you, which honestly might be worth a premium on its own. All right, here's the part one promised you at the start, and this is genuinely the most important 5 minutes of this entire video, so do not tune out now. Most tiny houses on wheels cannot get a standard mortgage. Full stop. Traditional lenders and government-backed loan programs like FHA require the home to be at least 400 square feet, sit on a permanent foundation, and meet all state and local building codes to even be considered. A tiny house on a trailer almost never qualifies. That means most tiny house on wheels buyers are paying cash, taking out a personal loan, or financing it like an RV at RV interest rates for an asset that depreciates the same way a car or a boat does the moment you drive it off the lot. A single-level, permanent foundation tiny house is a completely different financial animal. Because it is real property attached to land, it can qualify for conventional financing, it gets appraised the way a normal house does, and it builds equity over time instead of losing value. When you eventually sell your property, buyers see a permanent structure they can finance to, which makes your home dramatically easier to sell than a home on wheels that most buyers cannot get a loan for. This is the actual reason serious, long-term tiny house buyers are moving away from trailers and toward permanent foundations in 2026. It is not really about the loft. It is about whether the biggest purchase of your life is an asset or a depreciating liability. Foundation costs a bit more upfront. It pays you back for the rest of your life. Now, losing the loft means you lose the easiest square footage trick in a tiny house playbook, so a single-level design lives or dies on layout. A few things the good builders do that the bad ones skip. Sliding doors instead of swing doors everywhere possible. A standard swing door eats close to 9 square feet of usable floor space once you account for the arc it needs to clear. In a 400 square foot house, that arc is real money. 10-foot ceilings in the main living area. You saw this in a couple of the plans we mentioned earlier. Without a loft stealing your vertical space, builders are pushing ceiling height up instead, and it is genuinely one of the cheapest ways to make a small footprint feel like a real home rather than a box. Built-in storage that does double duty. Window seats with storage underneath, a bed platform with drawers built into the base, a kitchen island that is also your dining table. None of this is unique to single-level homes, but it matters more here because you do not have a loft to dump the overflow into. One bedroom, closed off. This sounds obvious, but a surprising number of tiny house floor plans skip an actual bedroom wall to save a few square feet. On a single-level plan, a real door between your bedroom and your living space is worth paying for. It is the difference between a house and a studio apartment with a fancy kitchen. Let me walk you through what an actual project might look like because abstract price ranges only take you so far. Say you are building a 500 square foot, 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom, single-level home on a pier and beam foundation, somewhere with a moderate cost of living. Going the semi-professional route where you hire out the system's work and do some of your own finishing. Foundation, pier and beam, roughly $6,000. Shell and framing, $22,000. Electrical, plumbing, and HVAC installed by licensed pros, $9,000. Kitchen and bathroom fixtures, $10,000. Windows and doors for $1,000. Interior finishes, flooring, paint, trim, $7,000. Permits and survey, $2,000. Site prep and utility hookups, $6,000. Add that up, and you are looking at roughly $66,000 all in before land. That lines up almost exactly with the $41,000 to $87,000 range builders quote for a semi-professional build in 2026, and it gives you a real, financeable, appraisable house instead of a very nice trailer. 3 mistakes show up over and over again with this style of build, and every single one of them is avoidable. Mistake 1. Choosing the foundation type based on price alone instead of the actual site. A slab is cheaper on paper, but if you pour one on a sloped or poorly draining lot, you're looking at drainage problems and possible structural issues down the road that cost far more to fix than the extra few $1,000s a pier and beam system would have cost up front. Mistake 2. Skipping the zoning check. Plenty of people fall in love with a plan, order it, and only then discover their county has a minimum square footage requirement for a primary residence that their dream design does not meet, or that accessory dwelling units require a completely different permit path than they assumed. Call your local building department before you spend $1 on plans. Mistake 3. Comparing sticker prices instead of installed prices across builders. We saw this with the Boxabl example earlier. A module price and a fully installed, permitted, move-in ready price can be tens of thousands of dollars apart. Always ask any builder for the fully loaded number before you compare it to a competitor. So if you're seriously considering this route, here is your action list. First, check your local zoning before you fall in love with a floor plan, because minimum square footage rules, setback requirements, and whether your county even permits a tiny house as a primary residence vary enormously by location. Second, get soil and site data before choosing between a slab, pier, or crawl space foundation, because the wrong choice on a sloped or unstable lot will cost you far more later than a soil test costs now. Third, get quotes from at least 2 or 3 builders, Whether that is a factory model like Boxabl, a fully built home from Great Lakes Tiny Homes, or a custom stamp plan from a company like DN or Tumbleweed's Foundation Ready Blueprints, and compare the fully installed price, not just the base sticker price. Fourth, talk to a lender early, before you commit to a design, so you know exactly what you need on paper for the home to qualify as financeable real property in your area. If this helps you see the tiny house world a little differently, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who are trying to figure this out honestly instead of getting sold a fantasy. Subscribe if you have not already. Drop a comment telling me which foundation type you're leaning toward, slab, pier, or crawl space, and I will see you in the next one.